It's funny that YouTubers probably do stuff like that all the time.
Yeah.
Probably give them such cue cards in the background we never think about it. We're like, how do they do that so seamlessly? They probably do this shit.
Probably.
Dude, it's already recording.
It was already recording. You got me there. Welcome back to the World Metal. Today we are doing the top 10 albums of 2019, my choice, so don't get butt hurt. There's probably a lot that I'm leaving off, but I got some honorable mentions. And I'm going to start off with those so I can do seamlessly from 10 to 1. One of the biggest honorable mentions is an EP, which is Our Bones by The Contortionists. I really loved it, really love The Contortionists. I like all their heavy stuff, I like all their lighter stuff. The music's amazing and that's really what turns me on, but the vocals were really nice too. Death Atlas is probably going to be in my honorable mention by Cattle Decapitation. I really love some of those songs. They have the lyrics to that album are really prophetic in some cases. If you haven't listened to that album, go check it out. If you can't understand the lyrics, check out the lyrics because they're pretty badass and the drumming is amazing as always. Wilton Blossom by Cartographs is another one of my honorable mentions. I'm going to have 5 or 6 here because it's really hard to narrow down to 10 albums. I see videos like this on YouTube all the time. It's not as easy as it seems. It's actually pretty freaking hard. And I feel bad for this being one of my honorable mentions, but World War X by Carnifex is going to be in my honorable mentions. As far as deathcore, would definitely be in my top 10 albums, just plain deathcore. It was an amazing album, amazing music, amazing guitar work. The riffs in almost every song, or at least one riff in every song, really pulled me in. I really loved it. Also, the Acacia Strain came out with a new album today, or for me, 11 p.m. last night on Christmas Day. So as I'm recording the video, it's December 26th. As you're watching the video, I don't know what day it is, but it's on Spotify, so go back and check it. It's the Acacia Strain. It comes in waves, and the tracks are 1 through 7. Our only sin was giving them names. And it sounded more like a concept album. It came out more like a concept album, and it wasn't really core at all. It kind of sounded more sludgier to me, but I still loved it. The only reason it's not in my top 10 is because it came out today. I haven't listened to it enough to really appreciate it. Haven't got all the lyrics down yet, even though Names, the last song on the album, it's like 8.5 minutes long. The whole song is pretty freaking good to me. I loved it. It's not exactly what I expected from the Acacia Strain, but it's pretty freaking awesome. So if I can think of any more honorable mentions at the end, I'll get to them. But as for now, I got number 10, Apoptosis by Alagion, I don't know how you say the name. I don't really care. They're an awesome band, and it's one of the bands that I go to anytime I'm wanting some really cool guitar licks or solo work, or just if I want to hear the instruments. Vocals are great, but instrumentation in that band is one of them. That and Shadow Intent is probably one of the 2 heavier bands that I go to whenever I really want to hear some guitar work. One of them is Metaphobia's transition licks, guitar licks between the different parts of the song. It's really freaking awesome. Go check it out. Number 9, Distance Over Time, Dream Theater. I've loved Dream Theater since I was a kid. They've obviously been around longer than I've been around. I'm not going to tell you my age, but as you can see, Dream Theater guys are a tad bit older than me. But I thought that it was really good. Fall Into the Light off of that album. It's probably my favorite, probably my favorite one off the album, and I've listened to it probably 50 to 100 times this freaking year. It's really great. And then Pale Blue Dot off the album is musical genius, and the song is epic, and the way that it builds up, time signature changes, the theoretical pattern that Dream Theater always uses in their music writing style is bar none. Number 8, coming in number 8, we got Periphery for Hellstand. Reptile off of that album, blending genres. It's got some themes with black metal and metalcore and progressive metal, and depending on what point in time that song's on, if you change it to it or you just start listening to it walking your room, at certain points in time when that song is on, I would probably think it was 3 different styles of music depending on what time walked in. So the blending of the genres in that song was probably the most seamless transitions of any song, and I'm all about transitions, breakdowns, anything like that. Core music is probably what I listen to the most. But anytime a song transitions from the direction you think it's going to go and then the direction it goes, it makes my nipples hard. And that's why I freaking love metal so much, because most songs do that. Follow Your Ghost is, the intro is freaking amazing. The leads, as far as lead guitars and stuff in that song, best on the whole album. And Follow Your Ghost is probably the biggest banger on that entire album. Whenever a band is like that, a lot of people say that if the vocals are bad or they're not appealed to the vocals, then it really turns them off to the band as a whole. That's not that way with me. If I hear some good music, it doesn't matter how the vocals are hitting. Me as a guitarist, you see old Freddie White here, my fiance named her. So this is old Freddie White, Schechter Demon 7. The last thing I want to say is Sentient Glow. Percussions is really what led me through that entire song. I really like the percussion work, I like the drum work. The first time I listened to it, I never do this with any songs, completely cut out the guitar and was just immersed with the drums. So really loved that one. Number 7, The Root of All Evil by Spot. The title track to that album gets stuck in my head all the time, and as you can see, I'm wearing Spot merch right now, brought to you by Mine's Truly, my fiance Monica behind the camera. Thank you,
Camera dude.
Spot cult. So The Root of All Evil gets stuck in my head at least once a day. You can ask her. Well, you can't ask her because she's not on camera, so crickets. So on that album, the talking on the song Doom, it does it I want to say 3 times during the song, where there's talking in the background. I think it flows epically with the feel of the music and the feel of the song, what the song is portraying, how it's trying to get off to the listeners of the song. And normally I don't like when songs take those breaks, and even whenever bands, and metal bands are notorious for this, taking samples from movies or news or anything, putting it at the beginning or in the middle. I'm not a huge fan of any of that. But on Doom, I think it worked really well, and that song is awesome. Now, Incarcerated and Rain in Hell are my favorite songs on the album. If I was going down the road, those are probably the 2 that I'd put on if I was in a Spot mood off that album. Now, with this album, to me, I don't think it was as good as some of the Spot's. It didn't flow like some of Spot's earlier albums did, especially their last album. But all in all, I think it was a great album, and it earns them a top 10 album of 2019 on my list. Still lived up to the top 10. Number 6, I have In Flames, Eye the Mask. The title track is probably my favorite. Guitar riff gets stuck in my head probably more than any guitar riff I've heard this entire year. So that whole album, I almost had a chance to go see them in Chattanooga, and that didn't happen, but that's cool. So maybe next year or something, next time they come. What? Oh. Alright, so number 5, Melancholy, Shadow of Intent. I thought that as far as heaviness mixed up with intricacy, that album is probably the most listened to whenever I go to just some very technical death metal riffs with those freaking breakdowns and deathcore breakdowns. Melancholy is great. Malediction or whatever, however you say it, is probably the perfect closer for an album like that. I think out of all the albums I listened to this year, as far as last tracks on that album, that was... there's one more, and we'll get to that. There's one more. Yeah, we'll definitely get to that. But overall, probably number 2, closer. And Malediction, however you say it, is probably my favorite song on that album. The build-up is perfect. The harmonies are great. I love the lead work on the guitar. The riffs on most of the entire album are pretty ridiculous. And I say that Malediction is probably my favorite song, but I think Nocturnal Damnation is probably my favorite. So, with that being said, number 4. And that is All Hell by Norma Jean. At first, whenever they started bringing out the singles, they released, after they got done releasing all the singles, they released it as an EP, and I got super pissed because they were saying they were going to release an album. And I thought that they were done after those first 5 songs or whatever. I don't remember what it was. So I was kind of pissed. And then I didn't really look up anything about it because I thought it was over. So I wasn't really up to date on the research there. But then, all hell, the rest of the album came out. And I listened to the album 27 times. With Errors is probably the biggest banger I've heard all year in 2019, hands down. As far as, not necessarily metal, but blending metal with, they have those hard rock tinges in there now. So I would say alternative metal would probably what that song is. And I thought it was amazing. I can sing along and scream along to that, and nothing changes. It's very simple. Same tempo, pretty much the whole song, same time signature. Very easy to listen to, and I like that every now and then. Translational, the build up is amazing in translational. A lot of people probably don't like that because they're wanting a little older Norma Jean, but with all their member changes over the years, it does sound different, but they still stay true. I think the members that have replaced members in the past were really good about bringing their own elements into Norma Jean, but still sticking with the Norma Jean brand and the Norma Jean sound, and that's what I love, and that's what I've loved since I was a kid. Like I said, the build up on translational and the scream at like 3 minutes, 20 seconds, 3 minutes and 30 seconds, every single time I hear it, it's just instant. Yeah, it's awesome. So, number 3, Artificial Void by Unprocessed. A progressive metal band. If you don't know who they are, go check them out, definitely. Artificial Void was a masterpiece. So, Artificial Void has a song called Fear that I've listened to probably just as much as I've listened to some Dream Theater stuff this year, like Falling to the Light. Upwards of, without exaggerating, upwards of 20, 25 times listening to that same song. Fear is awesome. It starts out, and I first, even as a guitarist, even as an 8-string guitarist, the first of Fear, when I first heard it, I thought it was a bass guitar doing some jinty boy. It was not though, so caught me off guard. It's pretty good. The guitar tone, that entire album, it's amazing. Yep. Prototype, the intro to Prototype on that album, definitely check Artificial Void title track out. Fear and Prototype. If you haven't listened to any of the album, those are 3 that I would recommend to go out. Number 2, pissing people off because it got a lot of hate this year, but it was the biggest album metal had of the year, and that's Fear Inoculum by Tool. I had to really try not to put them as number 1, and I didn't I'll go ahead and tell you, I didn't for the reason that what is my number 1, I listened to twice as much this year than any other album listed on the honorable mentions on this top 10. Any other band in general. I listened to stuff off this upcoming album more than anything. But Fear Inoculum Tool, Numa's main riff, I learned that probably 3 or 4 days after the song came out. I just sit down and picked it up and learned it. Really loved that. Gets stuck in my head all the time. Tempest, the 4.5 minute solo probably pissed so many people off. The 16-minute song, Tempest, probably pissed so many people off. I thought it was musical gold. I loved all the riffs. I love Maynard's vocals. Adam Jones did a great job on guitar. Danny Carey always freaking kills it on drums. But Tempest, Adam Jones's 4.5 minute solo is really cool. And there's a bridge riff. If you heard the song, you know what I'm talking about. Super simple guitar technique. It's in the right place at the right time at the right moment just to pull you in, and then you're just from that point on you're on your toes the rest of the song. If you're into that kind of stuff, if you're not, then, whatever, can't do anything about that. But all in all, it was a great album from my favorite band. But without further ado, I got number one album 2019, in my opinion, is The Valley by Whitechapel. And with that being said, a lot of people really, really hated this. A lot of deathcore fans particularly really, really hated this album because they didn't stay true to their Whitechapel sound and their heavy deathcore sound and every song being deathcore. Whitechapel fans were mad because of the same thing. It's just not what they wanted. But bands have to change. You can't just play the same thing for 60 daggum years. You gotta change it up for musical advancement purposes, personal advancement purposes, whatever you're feeling at the time, and that's the way I think it should be. It should all be about emotions. I think the guitars were very emotional. and contrasted very, very, very well with the lyrics. Phil Bozeman's lyrics were awesome. As always, I love Ben Savage. The lead guitars in every single song was awesome. I will say, as far as deathcore songs go, that them being in the deathcore genre, "Forgiveness is Weakness" is probably the best one on that album. It's not as intense as some of their older stuff, but I love that one. When a Demon Defiles a Witch, very emotional. I love that and Third Depth, where the song just picks up and then has this where everything's just calm and you feel Bozeman singing. Phil Bozeman has a really great voice, a lot better than I thought. He did it on one or two, singing one or two or three songs in the past, but he really showed his singing talent and abilities in this album. And that's probably mainly what a lot of people don't like. They don't like the clean vocals, but I think he did a really amazing job. Hickory Creek, mainly, other than maybe one scream, it's all clean, but music on that is really awesome. I think Brimstone and Black Bear are up there on my favorites. If you ask me what my favorite song from that album was, I'd probably say all of them, but if I had to narrow it down to just one, I would pick their closing track, Doom Woods. And this goes back to what I was saying from Malediction, from Shadow of Intent earlier, that I thought that was my favorite closer of the year, but I got thinking, Doom Woods is probably my favorite song on The Valley, and it's the closer, and I think it was the perfect way to close a song. It was the right length of a song for all they did with it. I think the lyrics are pretty awesome. The song is really emotional. If you don't know the meaning behind the lyrics, I'm not going to give them away. You can listen to the music if you haven't listened to the album yet. You listen to the music yourself, and then pay attention to the vocals, interpret it for yourself, because that's what I love doing. Read the meanings, what they had intentionally, or what the lyricist intended on the lyrics themselves to mean. And it's very emotional, and a lot of people don't like how Whitechapel drew back, but I think that they did an amazing job for what they did. So, yeah, this has been my top 10 albums and some honorable mentions of 2019 here on the Word on Metal. Again, I am Lex, and I will be back with some more 2019 and 2010's decade music in the coming days. And also going to do a top 10 riffs of the decade, but I haven't got that sorted out yet. I might do 20. I might do 25. I don't know. So once I get that figured out, I will.